Today we're going to talk about food, part 3, and we're going to cover portion size and balance. It's finally here, guys. I've spoken about it enough in the last couple of weeks, so let's get down to some details. Firstly, I've done this with many clients and it just works. It's simple, easy and effective to use. And the key thing is, it's sustainable. So it's not short-lived, it will last you a lifetime. And that's what I'm really about here, making changes that last a lifetime. I'm not going to bash on diets. We've probably tried them all, been there, tried different things, but they just generally don't work because they're so short-lived and they're so restrictive. What I really want to do is give you some foundations of nutrition that will last you a lifetime. I'm actually doing it myself as well, and I've actually seen myself get leaner for the sport I'm in, which is CrossFit, and I've seen great results from that in terms of my performance. And I'm now looking at to add more mass, so I'm tweaking that for myself to add more muscle. But that's enough about me. Let's get into the detail. First, we're going to take out Lisa's day in terms of what she eats. So firstly, we're going to draw 3 plates. So at the moment, Lisa doesn't have breakfast. It's very common. Many people just skip breakfast altogether. Now we're going to get Lisa's lunch. Lisa has a cheese sandwich for lunch and a packet of crisps. And actually later on she has a bar of chocolate between lunch and dinner just to keep herself going. So add that in there as well. And then for dinner, because she's not eating breakfast, she had a light lunch, she's really hungry. So Lisa has pasta, and I'm talking half the plate. And then she has a bit of meat, so she has some chicken. She puts some cheese on the pasta. And also she has a little bit of broccoli, so a bit of vegetables. So that's Lisa's day. So if we're looking at this day, breakfast, nothing. Then if you've got cheese, that's a fat. Let's put F on there for now. Then we've got sandwich or bread, which is a carb. Then you've got crisps and chocolate, again, carbs. And then for dinner, she's got pasta, half the plate, so that's carbs again. We're gonna put 2 carbs here because it's a big plate. Then chicken, she's had some protein. Cheese again, so that's a fat. And then some vegetables, so put V for that. So if it's to break this down, Lisa has, in terms of carbs, a portion, 5 portions of carbs, 1 portion of protein, and then 2 portions of fat, and then she has 1 portion of vegetables. So we've got a total here of 9. That'll make sense a bit later on. And generally speaking, that's most people's days. They miss breakfast, have a light lunch, they're starving, eat loads in the evening to compensate. Next, I'll show you a way of eating that will look at portion size and also balance and keep you full throughout the day. For this section, we're going to need that piece of paper or the paper plate we discussed and 4 different coloured pens. So you may need to pause the video here, quickly grab that equipment and then come back in and then press play again. Now let's show you what we're doing. So, if you get that paper plate or piece of paper in front of you, what you're going to do is draw around your fist. So I'm just going to draw this on the board, draw a big plate for you. Now you're just going to grab one of the 4 colours you've got. I'm starting with purple. And it's going to draw a fist at the bottom of your paper plate, or the bottom of your piece of paper. And you're going to mark that protein. And then what you're going to do is grab another coloured pen, and then you're going to do the same on the opposite side. So bear with me with this one. Opposite home, you can just turn the paper around, and you're going to mark that carbs. And that's going to be starch-based or fruit. And then you're going to grab a 3rd pen, and then you're just going to put on there thumb size, and we're going to call that healthy fats. And then the rest of the plate in your 4th colour is going to be vegetables. So all this space here. Okay, so that's what your plate is ideally going to look like. So fistful of protein, fist size of carbs, starch based of fruit, thumb size of healthy fats, and the rest of the plate is to be vegetables. That is classed as 1 meal or 1 portion. And ideally this is what every plate should look like for breakfast, lunch and dinner. I'll give you some ideas a bit later on of what meals you can have and good, better and best. Just as a bit of an experiment, I wanted to go back to what you ate yesterday and start marking these off. So, source of protein. So now you've got good, better and best. Did you have any of those as a source of protein for any of those meals? So start off with breakfast. What do they look like? Did you have any protein for breakfast? If you did, give yourself a tick. So I'll do mine, for example. I did. And then you move on to, did you have any carbohydrates with that breakfast? And if you did, again, let's give it a tick. Again with the corresponding colour. So mine's blue. Or if you got those stars, use those stars on there. And then you've got healthy fats. Did you have any healthy fats for breakfast? I did, had some nuts. So again, give that a tick. And then, did you have vegetables for breakfast? I did, it's going to be a bit more tricky, but again, I'll give you some tips and hints on how you can get around that. But you want to put a tick or a star in that space. So ideally, you should see 4 ticks for that meal. Now let's take a look at a plate if you're a vegetarian or vegan. So again, just draw that plate out for you. What you're going to do again is grab another colour and you're going to just draw around your fist. And again, on the opposite side, you're going to do the same thing, but in this box we're going to have protein veg. And I'll get to that detail in a second of what that actually looks like. And opposite, if you draw a fist again. And then in this box you're going to have protein-based carbs, or a starch-based carb, or fruit, and also a meat substitute. And then you're just going to have, like you had before, a thumb-sized portion of healthy fats. And in the rest of the plate you're going to have vegetables. In terms of what it looks like in terms of protein vegetables, you're going to have things like spinach, kale, green peas and corn. And the portion size of these are 2 cups worth for spinach and kale, and then 1 cup worth for green peas and also corn. And then in terms of your meat substitute, it's going to be one of 3 things. It's going to be corn, hemp powder, or plant-based protein. And that comes in a form of powder. And then for protein-based carbs, if you remember back in week 2, we covered this in quality. So if you look at that protein list, it's the good section in there, which covers things like beans, lentils, tofu, the 2 spaghettis. So in the protein section, it's the good column. And that's how you balance a plate if you're vegetarian or vegan. A question around that, just drop them down the closed Facebook group and I'm more happy to answer them. And in terms of how many plates you should have a day, if you're male or female, let's take a look at that now. So if you're a female who wears a large size top or less, you should be having 3 plates of those a day. If you're a female who wears extra large or larger, you should be having 4 plates a day. And if you're a male that wears anything less than a large, you should be having 4 plates a day. And if you're a male who's extra large plus, you should be having 5 plates a day. All this is a great place to start. What it will do is reset your body back to 0, and everyone needs to go back to 0 so they've got a foundation to work from. So if you're looking for muscle gain or tone, you can add more plates. If you're looking for fat loss, you can reduce the amount of plates you have a day. But this is a great place to start to reset your body to 0. A couple of things to track that. In week 1, 2, 3 and 4 of trying this, I recommend you try it for 4 weeks. Take a photo of your week and you'll see incremental changes in your body shape. But to track that, take those photos. And if you ever get stuck with anything, reference to a plate, always have that plate on your fridge or next to where you cook or place of work where you mainly eat. That can really help you as a guide. Next section, look at balance. If you start adding treats in there or if you start having alcohol, how do you balance that all up? Now we're going to look at your typical day in terms of balancing your food and what it would look like. So for example, we'll start at breakfast. And then we're going to look at proteins, carbs and fats and vegetables. And we're going to tick this as we go along. For example, here, if you had eggs for breakfast, they contain protein and fats, so you get a tick for both. Now if you had some toast with that, or some oats or some fruit, don't have to have that all on the same plate. It'd be a tick for carbohydrates. And for example, if you want to have those eggs in an omelette, you'd then tick the vegetable one. If you added mushrooms, onions or spinach or any kind of vegetables you like in the omelette. So that's 4 ticks for breakfast, then move on to lunch. And then for lunch, say if you had some salad, made that a ham or chicken salad, and that'd be a tick for vegetables for the salad. And then a tick for protein for the ham or chicken. And then if you also decide to have some avocado with that, for example, half or whole, up to you. But if you did have a whole avocado, that'd be 2 ticks, so it's 2 portions worth in the fat section. And to finish it off, you might have some fruit, so a banana for example. That'd be a tick for carbs. And then moving on to dinner. It could be any meat, any veg, and that'd be a tick for protein and the vegetables. And then any starch-based carbohydrates, so like pasta, rice, brown rice, any potatoes, and then a tick for carbs. And because you've already had fats here, 2 ticks, you won't have any fats for dinner. So if you add that all up, that should equal 12 ticks. 12 ticks. Now, for example, if you wanted to change some things around, maybe you didn't fancy having toast for breakfast, or oats or fruit. So you rub that out along with the carbs, and maybe you want to have it a bit later, so you wanted to have some fruit after dinner maybe. Maybe ticking the carb box. Still 12 ticks. If you wanted to move some other things around, for example, do we have a whole avocado for lunch? Maybe you want to spread that over the day, have some nuts with your breakfast. And maybe you want to have some seeds with your lunch. Again, still 12 ticks. So the basic idea is that every section of carbs, protein, fats and vegetables should have 3 ticks in. 1, 2, 3. So on and so forth, which equals 12. Simple. So mix it up as much as you want. Have your carbs all in the morning if you want to, protein later in the day. It doesn't really matter as long as you hit 3, 3, 3 and 3. Total of 12 for a female and a large size, so you get 3 meals a day. Totally up to how you break it up. A couple of things here, for example, if you missed out, if you added something else to this, so if you want to have some pudding with your dessert or you want to have a treat, that day you just got to know you're going to be over your calorie intake. And I wouldn't try and sub things out. For example, miss breakfast and then have like a chocolate muffin. Don't go down that route, it's very tricky to pull that back in. Let's try and stick to this as best we can. Then for example, if you ate lunch out and you had like a dessert at lunchtime, that's okay. Again, just know that you're going to be over your calorie intake for that day. But just accept that, move on, next day, reset, go back to this. And if you have more good days than bad, you will lose weight, you will gain muscle, you will tone. But the key things here is you stick to this as best you can as a guideline and tweak from there. Now we're going to look at some foods that might catch you out in terms of carbs, fats and proteins. First we'll start off with oily fish. So oily fish is high in protein, also contains a moderate amount of fats. Then we've got things like lentils, which are classed more of a carb source. There are some low to moderate levels of protein, so we'll tick that. And I'll probably only use that if you're vegetarian or vegan as a protein source. Then you've got beans, exactly the same. High levels of carbohydrates. Low to moderate levels of protein. And then you've got eggs, which are moderate levels of protein and fats. And then lastly, you've got nuts and seeds, which are definitely classed as a fat. Because the amount of nuts you've got to actually consume to get enough protein in, it's just not worth the fat content. Next, we're going to look at progress on a chart and see how this way of eating works. Now let's take a look at progress and how we can track that. So 2 axes here, time along the bottom, and then progress on here. So, this will tend to be your curve if you're good. Let's give an example, 3 out of the 7 days in terms of food. That's your progression if it's 5 out of 7. And then if you're 6 out of 7, you're going to progress even more. And then even look at in terms of those sources. For example, you can still hit carbs, fats and proteins using other sources. For carbs, for example, you could have cereal. For protein, you could have a protein bar, a load of nuts. And that's the kind of progression you see. So in a nutshell, the closer you stick to those kind of guidelines, the better progress you're going to make. But just note that the more you put in, the more you get out. It's as simple as that. And not to worry, you're still making progress. It's just going to be a little bit slower, depending on what your aim is, what your goal is, and how badly you want it. Because that's what it boils down to at the end of the day. Now we're going to look at my favourite part, questions and answers. The top 10 things that people are worried about, have questions about nutrition in terms of portion size and balance. Number 1, this is just too much information for me, I'm going to struggle here. Well, let's break it down into chunks. Let's just start with breakfast. Let's get a good breakfast going, and then we'll take it from there. Small changes, what you call bigger changes in the long run. So start with breakfast. Number 2, what about counting calories or macros? Calories and macros are good. They're a good thing to do in terms of counting. But a better way of doing that is getting a solid foundation of good nutrition and then work from there. So always start with that. Reset to 0, work from there. And number 3, this is more food than I normally eat. I think I'm going to put on weight. Actually, clients who've used this way of eating have actually lost weight. So stick with the process, you'll be fine. Number 4, what do I do when I eat out? You do the same thing. Fistful of carbohydrates, fistful of protein, thumb size of healthy fats, rest of the plate vegetables. Anywhere you go, I guarantee on that menu you'll find a good option. It might be better, it might be best, but you'll find a good option. Go with that good option. Number 5, I'm just struggling with everything. It's just too much information to take in, too many changes happening. So stick with the process, you'll be fine. Number 6, which nuts are better for me? Cashews, almonds, hazelnuts. If you go into that detail, I won't worry about it. Unless you're going to be on stage in a bodybuilding competition, don't worry about those numbers yet. Let's really focus on getting a good solid foundation of nutrition and looking at good, better, and then best. And when you get to that best category, let's work from there. And number 7, I have a family and they're all fussy eaters. I don't want to cook separately from them. This is going to be a bit of a trial and error here. You're going to have to work with them. So maybe take them food shopping with you. Maybe get them to cook with you so they get to learn and understand a bit about nutrition. I guarantee you'll find something that works for your family, but it's going to be a bit of trial and error here. And number 8, what's the best way to follow this or log this? You've got 2 ways. 1, MyFitnessPal. It's a great app to use. You can use it to log all your foods. Don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about the calories, the fats, protein, carbs. Don't worry about that. Just use it to log your food so you've got some accountability in there. And the second way you can do it is I'll send you a PDF where you can just log it in a written format. And number 9, how often should I weigh myself? I always say once a week, same time, same scales, same day. Nice and simple. Better way of doing it, because that's a good way, better way is to take some photos once a week and you'll see the change there. And number 10, what's the top tip on nutrition? My top tip is keep it simple. Make it easy to follow. Make sure it works for you. It serves you. It's got to work for you because then you'll be sustainable for a longer period of time. Much appreciated for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed today's content. That's nutrition done. See you guys in the next video.